Hey, good morning to those of you out there on the West Coast. Good afternoon to those of you here on the East Coast with me. We're going to get started in just a second. Making sure everything I got here is ready. I hope you're having a good week or had a good weekend. You're getting ready to have a good week. If you haven't already done so, make sure you subscribe to the register for the networking at 2 o'clock. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a second. I wanted to just start off with a quick thank you for those showing up early and on time. I appreciate when you do, because when you do, LinkedIn then puts the word out to other people and reminds them, hey, we're in training, we're getting started. Let me go ahead and turn one of these captions off for a second. But my tip for you is this book, Who Moved My Cheese? This is an excellent book just in general, right? I've read this for years and years and years. Just in general, it's a reminder that sometimes when we see cheese revenue, let's call it, right, flowing right here, and sometimes it moves. That's just the way it happens. For example, the financial sector might be up, and then another time the oil sector or industry might be up. And where that money for our businesses comes from might shift. And it's the same thing in the government. Sometimes that money is coming out of this department or agency, and sometimes it's over here on a different one. And this book, Who Moved My Cheese, talks to us about not being complacent with the good times, and when bad times hit, it talks about basically put your shoes on and get out there and go looking for the new pool of cheese. Not to minimize anything, but it's a great little book that just helps me keep going as I go through my day. I appreciate you putting in your cities and state. I'm looking at Melissa from Dallas, Texas as my one example, right? Put that in. Let people know where you're from, because maybe you guys are in the same city and you can connect, and that's a great way to get started. If you haven't been to one of my trainings before, I move at a fire hose pace. I try to get a lot of information in 30 minutes. So that's what we're going to be doing. I am kind of recovering from 2 weeks of being sick, and so I might excuse me, I might get a little coughing like that. But otherwise, I'm feeling good and off to the races. I apologize for the cough. So let's go ahead and get started in today's training around, what I called survival in the Trump administration activity. And I wanted to share some opening thoughts as it relates to today's training. Today, I'm talking about all these things that are going on in 2025, right? January, we're 1 month, a little bit more than 1 month into the Trump administration. There's just been a ton of upheaval. And what I wanted to just share is I've been through this before a lot. And so that gives me a perspective at looking at this one going, man, it sucks, but can I see a way out? And I just thought I'd share a couple. I remember when I was in the Army, the first example I have, and the first time I ever experienced this, before I was in the Army, I didn't know there was a federal government, right? In history class or something, social studies, but not really aware of it. But when I was in the Army, it really started becoming obviously much clearer to me because I was part of the federal government. But there was something called a RIF, a reduction in force, that happened back in the Clinton administration. And they came in and basically they removed 250,000 federal positions. And so as we watch what's happening now, I don't like the brutality of it. It was a whole different way of handling it back then. But there was a lot of reduction going on. And so that did happen, right? And not at all not at all trying to compare them in a negative way, just we came out of that. And in 95 and 96, when I was at the Pentagon, still with the Army, the government shut down. And this was still during the Clinton administration. And it led to two major things: furloughs for the government employees. And those furloughs, they were off work for a while, so not getting paid. They did eventually get back pay, but it was pretty brutal for people depending paycheck to paycheck. And it was even worse for contractors because contracts were just froze. And those of us who had contracts, I wasn't a government contractor then, I was in the Army, but those of us with contracts, you had employees, you're trying to figure out what to do. It's similar to the things we're running into now. In 2012, when I did have this was actually my second government contracting company, I lost 80% of my revenue in one day because of sequestration. And we're talking about millions of dollars. It wasn't like, oh, I lost $100,000. Millions of dollars just instantly because of sequestration and what was going on in the government. They were trying to cut spending, and then it impacted large primes and others, frankly, that I was over dependent on. And then it came down. And so it was a pretty big hit. And then in the last Trump administration, right, he came in. I remember doing an interview on ABC talking about, where he was going to spend money. And what I said was all administrations spend money. They just have a aversion to cutting spending. No matter what they say, they end up still spending. And so with him, he just shifted spending to his priorities, which is what he's doing now. And so these things happen. The reason I say this and kind of sharing this is I've been through these kind of situations before. And so when I look at them, as frustrated as I might be, and I've shared some of that over the weekend on LinkedIn, et cetera, as frustrated as I might be, I still focus on how do I take care of making sure you and your family eat, right? That's my first priority. And then I will deal with the outrage I might feel about how this is all happening, which I don't think is really that good. But so today we're going to be talking about surviving. That's why I themed this around surviving. And I'm going to break up today's training into 4 sections. The first one is I just want to acknowledge a little bit about where we're at. I don't want to spend a lot of time here, but it does suck. The things that are going on definitely just are not pleasant, right? And they are, as bad as they are, it's not the end. It's really just my point of trying to get there. It feels really crappy. But I want to be able to also look on the outside. What do we do when it starts turning around? And that's the last 2 bullets I want to cover, is how to prepare for the rapid changes that are happening to us. I want to give you really tactical tips. And then how to proactively drive your activity and your success in 2025, even in the next few months, not even the whole year, just the next few months. What can you be doing right now? And so that's what I'm going to be driving towards. If this is something that you want to hear about, and you want to start seeing success in government contracting, you want things to get better, just put get better in the chat for me. Let me know that you're thinking about the get better part. And for 1 minute, let's not look about how bad it all seems out there. If you don't know who I am, my name is Neil McDonough. I'm the president of the GovCon Chamber of Commerce and co-founder of GovCon in a Box. And I want to welcome you to my federal sales training, where I provide tips for success in the federal market. I spent 20 years in the federal market as a small business owner. And since I got out of the Army, and since 2018, I've been teaching people like you that government contracting is not a secret. It's just a process. When we follow a process A to Z, we're going to have repeatable, predictable results. That's what I want for you. That's why I do this stuff, is I want us to have predictable success. And we can. It's pretty predictable that if I don't rest, my sickness will last longer. Next time I need to just stop for a week. All right. If you haven't done so already, make sure you subscribe to our Government Contracting Success newsletter. It's the largest government contracting newsletter on LinkedIn by far. And it's because I constantly am trying to provide you tips that I think you would find value on. By the way, one quick tip that's not in the newsletter, but last night I put out a 45-page APBI Advanced Planning Brief to Industry, basically an industry day type deck about all sorts of Army opportunities. So go in there and take a look at it. There's contracting officers, small business specialists, all sorts of good information. You can find that right on my LinkedIn profile. And then tomorrow's training, you can check out tomorrow's training. We've got several trainings coming up. Let me just tell you what they are really quick. By the way, thanks for engaging in chat. This isn't just training. It's also a chance for you to network with others and meet people. All right, so we've got the training we're doing right now. I'm going to do virtual networking at 2 p.m. today. So that's a whole separate activity, but we go on Zoom and we network. Tomorrow is how to find small business teaming partners so that you can win federal contracts. We must work together to be able to not just have success, but bigger success. On Wednesday, is Doge killing government contracting? I'm going to do that training. How to respond to RFIs is on Thursday, and the best way to make money in the federal market, like where that money should be aiming, is on Friday. So hopefully this stuff, if it interests you, you're registered for it. One last thing, I just want to congratulate the companies who are in the 100 Club. I created something called a Federal Visibility Score. This is how visible are you to federal buyers on their own tools, on their own portals. An example is, I just said the Army has this opportunity, or this deck that I put out, 45 pages, and it came out of Army Contracting Command Aberdeen Proving Ground. And in that deck, they talk about they have their own supplier portal. So there's DSBS, which is basically the SBA's equivalent, of where we all register with SAM and DSBS. And then there's the Army has their own portal. Make sure you get on there and register. But what the 100 Club is about is how visible are you on the very basic tools the government is using. So go to govconinabox.com. Right there on the homepage at the top, excuse me, on the homepage, right on the main page, you'll see a button that says check my score. And I want you to be at 100. This is free. I provide all the guidance you need to be able to move forward on it. Okay, so let's talk about very briefly that it does suck. And I know that it sucks. And I've got personal experiences with it. Just had a customer had to cancel on us this morning. I mean, just really personal, right? It's not out there because they're no longer going to be targeting the federal government. They've decided to change the direction they're going, right? And that actually is the second time I've heard people doing that in 2 days. Yesterday, somebody else told me that, Saturday or Sunday. And then I've had lots of people talk about where the contracts canceled and these things going on. I know these things are happening. One of the things that I think is important for us to remember when you got people like me opening our mouths and talking about things is that no one really knows what's going on. Even in the administration, et cetera, no one really knows what's going on. I'm sharing my thoughts based on a guy who's got a lot of experience being through this, but do I know what's going on? No, but I've got a lot of experience that can kind of guide my my strategic plans for 2025, what I will tell my customers. I don't mean to minimize any of the pain we're feeling, any of the brutality of these just contract cuts and the firing of employees. That's all just brutal. No way I can dance around that, right? And I'm not being political. No one knows which side of the aisle I fall on. I just don't think it's fair when there's no notice and things are happening, right? But the reality is they are happening. President Trump's got these executive orders he's dropping. He's got the hiring freeze where no new employees can come on, or if you do hire somebody, it has to be one hire for every 4 positions that are gone. So there's a lot of this activity going on in the executive order, the DEI freezing that happens. But then there's the DOGE activity, right? And the DOGE activity is just so cutthroat, and it's coming through, and they're just doing these swaths, right? And I really want you to pay attention to this because in a minute, I'm going to say, be the Doge. And hopefully you'll stick with me and understand what I mean by this. But these things are all happening to us. And if you watch any kind of movies, especially like silly movies, there's a movie, 2-part movie out there, a sequel, but it's called Meg and then Meg 2. And this movie in there, one of my favorite lines is when, not to spoil the movie, right? But they're down, they crashed the submarine like a bazillion miles deep in the ocean. And this guy's got his daughter with her, and they're starting to freak out for a second. And he says, stop, we work the problem in front of us. We can't work all these other issues that are going on. There's sharks everywhere, everything else. Let's just work on getting breathing equipment so that we can survive the next step. And that's how I'm kind of thinking about what I'm saying to you, right? Is work the problem in front of us. If we can do that, then we can slowly move forward, even though all this stuff is happening around us. An example of why I kind of stay optimistic and I say that the government never stops spending is right now. I just checked before I did the training, 953 RFIs right now in SAM due in the next 30 days. And that's the same as it's always been. I've been releasing these LinkedIn posts where I talk about 950 RFIs or 1,000 RFIs or 926 RFIs, right? One time it was like 650 in the next 30 days. And so there's a huge amount of RFIs in there. That means there's spending there. There is definitely spending cuts. There's definitely things that are happening indiscriminately without any kind of courtesy of notice, et cetera. And at the same time, there's continued spending. And so that's where I'm kind of looking in there. Okay, so let's talk about like how you can prepare for all these changes, right? There's a lot of rapid changes going on out there. And these are just my tips for you. And I do not want to scare you. And I also don't want to minimize anything you might be feeling. But I do want to state, at least this is what I state to my customers, is that the spending is going to keep happening. And there's things we can do. I can't control what President Trump or Elon Musk are doing. I just have no influence there at all, right? None. And so while it concerns me, what I can influence is over here. So an example is any of the contracts my customers have, I'm assuming they're all at risk of somebody going, it's closed for the convenience of the government, right? If you are not thinking that way, start thinking that way immediately. Even if you don't think it's at risk, if you operate from this standpoint of it's a risk, then you're going to think about it about how do I mitigate that risk or how do I avoid that risk? If you're not familiar with risk management, there's basically three things you can do with risks. And so let's say if I'm driving my car, there's a risk I can crash. Well, I can avoid that risk by not driving, for example, or I can mitigate it. If I crash, I can try to crash with the airbag so I survive or something, or I can accept it and like the song says, Jesus take the wheel kind of thing. There's three ways of handling risk, and it's the same things with your contracts. You can't control the final one, which is if it happens, but you can kind of influence the first two, which is trying to mitigate it. Like, what can I do looking at other contracts, or how can I avoid it? How can I really justify it? I'll talk about that more in a minute. But one of the first things I would do is get together with your core and your KO. If you don't know this, KO stands for Contracting Officer in the Department of Defense. In civilian side, we call them COs, Contracting Officers. But in the military, CO stands for Commanding Officer. Anyways, sidebar. What I want you to do is to talk to your government buyer. Keep in mind, though, they don't even know what's going on. Several people have already shared that their contracts have been canceled, and they talked to the core and to the KO and to the users. None of them knew it was going to be canceled. It was just canceled for the convenience of the government because of DOGE initiatives coming down, right? And so you need to talk to your customer, though, and find out, have you heard anything? What do you think about this? This is similar to when there's a budget. You know how like the budget doesn't get passed? We're in continuing resolutions right now. If the budget doesn't get passed, then the only work that can continue is essential work. You need to look at your contracts. And this is my recommendation to you. Look at your contracts with your core, with your program office personnel, and with your contracting officer and folks, and talk to them about your contract and each one of your contracts. If you have more than one, talk to them about the contracts and what they think. They also are following what's happening with DOGE. And then I mentioned this earlier, but I want you to go all DOGE on your contracts. Don't sit back and let it happen to you, right? Look at your contract and act and say to yourself, this is role playing, right? Imagine if you were going to go on a sales call. You need to role play and sometimes be the difficult customer who's going to sit there and say, oh, you're not big enough or you don't have enough opportunities. Well, how would you handle that? So this is what I mean by going all DOGE on your contract, is role play with you and your colleagues that you are DOGE and you're looking at this person's contract and you're evaluating whether it should be cut or kept. Try to put yourselves in their position so you can beat them at their game, right? It's like, get ahead of this. There's this thing out there where, DOGE and Elon Musk are talking about people have to justify their job and they have to justify contracts, et cetera. Well, don't wait for that to come at you and happen. Do it yourself right now. Go, how can I justify this? How can I really go forward? And then engage your people who are doing the actual work. Billable staff. Why is this so valuable? And then get it back to the contracting folks, because these agencies are all being pushed and pressured to look around for cuts. Again, I'm not here to talk about the right and the wrong of it, right? The way of it is brutal and it's just completely wrong. But I'm not here to justify any of these things. I'm trying to guide you on how can you look at the current contracts you have and try to protect them as much as you can. Do not assume any single one of them is protected. If you do, that's just irresponsible. Not to be mean, right? But it's just irresponsible. Look at your contract, act like they're at risk, and go all DOGE on them, and you will increase your chances of protecting those and be able to handle the rapid changes that are going on. It's funny, people are putting in chat certain things, and I apologize. I don't read chat usually, so I don't know what you're asking, but I'll answer your questions later because I only got 11 minutes left. So here are some proactive steps I want you to take looking forward. And when I say I want you to take, these are the steps I'm trying to do with my own customers, right? I look at our activity and go, what can we do to increase our chances of success, even though all this stuff is kind of happening around us? So the first thing I would really like to encourage you to do is to reevaluate your core offer. We say that you should have a clear, focused offer. And what a focused offer means is niched down, really looking at that offer and saying, we do just this. Here's an example. Do me a favor in the chat, If you're by your computer, don't do this if you're driving. But in the chat, put answer this kind of phrase or question. I sell 2 or 3 words. I sell this, this, and this to federal agencies. What do you sell to federal agencies? Don't write this long thing, right? But what do you sell? I was trying to see if I could see anybody, but I'm going to watch for a second. But that's your core offer. Is it niched down? Is it really tight? For example, don't tell me you sell cybersecurity. That's not niched down. Are you attacking China? Are you protecting from China? Are you doing information assurance? Are you doing authority to operate or risk management framework, et cetera? So put that in. I want to see what you're selling. There you go. I sell change management and training to federal agencies from John. That kind of thing. Well, first off, that's something, and John, let me just use you as an example, but hey, everybody go say hi to John Lowe. But John, I would challenge you, unless you're a bigger company, change management and training are 2 different things. Pick one or the 2 of them. And I would think maybe change management might be the more important one. And the idea is training could be an enabler to making that happen. And I'm not trying to change John's things, but I'm trying to get everybody to think that way, is narrow down on what you offer so it is very clear. And then I would continue to talk with John and say, John, change management where? In what part of the organization? Change management for IT, change management for HR, niche it down. I mean, we had this tendency to want to say, well, we could help everybody. Yes, but don't. That's not how we're going to be able to do it. And especially right now, you need to be able to zero in and go, and this goes to my second point, the second and third point, right, is you need to narrow down that niched down core offer to the government's need. Right now, President Trump and through him with Doge, they're really talking about, basically, they're saying we want to get rid of every bit of spending that is not aligned directly with the priorities of the Trump administration and the mission of the agency. So, for example, the mission, man, I don't know who just put that long thing in, but don't put long things in the chat, please. It's just too much shit, too much. Chat's supposed to be easy. Anyways, the idea is, are you aligning to the agency mission? The Army's mission is to, fight wars. So when you think about that, if John was thinking about change management, where does he align in there? Understand the Trump administration's priorities and goals, understand the agency's mission, and then its priorities and goals. When you do that, you're able to take what you sell and align it directly in there. This is a proactive approach to driving your success, right? Rather than reactive, seeing what's on SAM and then responding, because even that, you might respond it, win it, and it goes away because it's not really aligned. Figure out how to align what you sell to the federal agency need. The bottom 2 bullets here is, the first one is I'm talking about building a large network, right? And so when I say a large network, I mean a very large network. I put a poll out today, and what I basically recommended is you need to have 5,000. This is my opinion and my recommendation to you. You need to have 5,000 connections on LinkedIn. It's like, oh my God, that's a lot. I only have 300 or even 3,000, and that's a lot, right? You need to have 5,000. Set that goal and go. There's more than 1 million people in the federal space just on the contracting side. But when you include the government and when you include industry, there's millions and millions of us on LinkedIn. And so you slowly start building that. I don't mean build it in the next month. I said do it over the next couple of years, 2-3 years, you can get to that point. But that's a network, because that network, those 5,000 people, they all have connections. And when you are protective of your network, like I often reject people who reach out to connect with me. You can follow me all day long, but I'm not connecting because I don't need to see something from another country in my feed. I don't interact with another country at the moment. I'm, American government, federal market space. That's where I'm at. So those are the people I want to connect with. When you connect with these people, you start hearing about things. For example, because you're connected with me, you heard about the Army opportunities that I just mentioned. Right? Somebody else was posting something on LinkedIn to their network, and another person saw it and said, and started asking questions about what they wrote, and they're able to get together. There's so much value, and I don't want to go too far into it. I've written all sorts of articles and done training, but a proactive step you can be doing is build your network. And I would start with the people who were in the chat. A little later today, come back down and give thumbs up to the people who are in the chat. And most importantly, look and go, Jay, I sell water management for national security. No kidding. I need to learn more about that, Jay, right? And if you're in national security, especially the water world, anything to do with that, you might go, might make sense for me to connect with Jay. One thing about your network, never, ever be uppity. I don't know what the right word is, but never look at somebody and go, and maybe I rephrase uppity to prejudiced. Never be prejudiced against another person. And I don't mean this in a negative way, but if you're in construction, don't look at a cyber security company and go, well, we're nothing alike. I want to find other construction companies. Don't prejudge them. Networks are amazing because maybe both of you are targeting the Army. Maybe you're both in Texas and you could connect one way. Maybe one of you is reading a bunch of RFIs and you go, oh, I'm construction. Oh, look at this cyber one. Hey, cyber guy, here you go. Right. And so don't judge it. If you're in the same market, the federal market, then connecting makes sense. It doesn't mean you're going to be best friends and talk every single day. It doesn't even mean you have to have a meeting. This is your network within the LinkedIn world in particular. And by the way, another great way to build those connections is today at 2:00. I've got more than 300 people registered for a networking session. So you can go to govconinAbox.com/networking. Maybe somebody would be generous enough to put that in the chat for me. govconinAbox.com/networking. If you go there, you'll find a link to register for the training. But 300 plus folks are saying, hey, I want to come in and I want to connect. You can meet these people, and this is how we grow stronger, right? So this is really important. Last tip on here is build 8 strategic relationships. Go watch a ton of previous training I've done on this, but a strategic relationship is one that is committed to mutual growth, you to them and them to you, because then you start looking at opportunities you can pursue together. And I don't mean 2 inexperienced companies coming together. I mean, if you're inexperienced, basically you're trying to find somebody bigger than you, right? For the other companies that you're building a relationship with, maybe they didn't listen to my advice, but you're looking for somebody who can actually lead you towards business. I don't mean hand it out. I mean, you two will work together driving towards that. Okay. Let me leave you last 3 thoughts here as we wrap up. Just a couple of things I want you to remember. First off, remember tomorrow's training, register for that. But what I want you to remember from what I just talked about today is chase tomorrow's dollar. Don't chase yesterday's. You're chasing how it was done or how it always had been. And I got tons of years of experience that are kind of, not useless, but could hinder me if I keep looking at how it always was done instead of I change and I go, all right, time for this dog to learn a new trick, right? And the look at how the money will be spent going forward. Wayne Gretzky, a famous hockey player, once said, skate where the puck is going to be, not where it is. So on hockey, you've got on the ice, you got a puck going everywhere. And he said, don't go to where the puck is, go to where it's going to be. And that's tomorrow's dollars, right? The second thing I want you to pay attention to is don't go it alone. Don't go all dormant. Don't close down. I get the tendency. It goes back to my first slide. It sucks. I get it. But we're here for you. I'm here for you every day in these trainings. I'm committed to coming back and trying to give as much as I can. But the other thing is be proactive yourself. Do 1 RFI a week. And don't tell me you can't do 1 RFI. I don't know how you're going to do it, but go find it. There's got to be one out there, right? It's like, and even if you're responding to an RFI where all you can do is respond to 1 task out of 20, respond back to the government. Say, hey, we can't do the whole thing, but we want to tell you how great we are on this. Get used to writing about your 1 core offer in an RFI. Keep visible to those federal buyers. I told you they're going to spend. We just got to figure out where that is. And the last thing, again, is join me today at 2 p.m. on the networking. You can go to GovConInABox/networking. Thanks, Jay Madigan. And is it Gaurav? You need to come to the networking so I learn how to pronounce your name. Okay, hey, I do this training for free because so many people out there need this support, need the lessons. If you can afford to work with me and you're doing $2, $3, $4 million a year and you're looking to go to the next level and you're looking to get past this, I've got 1 more slot for coaching in 2025 right now, as I mentioned earlier. So reach out to me. Otherwise, just keep coming back to the training. I will see you in tomorrow's training. And remember, government contracting, it's not a secret. It's just a process. I will see you in the next training. No, I will see you at networking and then tomorrow in the next training. All right, I'll see you.